Hello, everyone. My name is Dominic Marasingh with Day Trade Asia, and I'm along here interviewing one of the speakers for Asia in regards to the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. In fact, he's a speaker and trainer for the Chicago Mercantile Exchange group here in Asia Pacific, also for EUREX Exchange. And most of all, he's also the founder of Traders Academy International based in Singapore. And he's also the author of The Accidental Trader. And his name is Daniel Ang. And he's based in Singapore. And this is an honor for me to have a chance to interview him. And I also thank him for giving me this opportunity to interview him, especially in what he trades. Some of the instruments that he trades one of them is basically the Emini futures. So before we get started, I'd like to ask again a warm welcome to Sir Daniel. And here, my first question is, how did you get started in trading? And when you first started trading, what did you trade?
All right. Thank you very much again for inviting me to this interview, Dominic. And I started in this business not by design. It's one of the story that actually, is quite dear to my heart. I started off in 1985. That was when I just finished my A-levels and waiting for my results. And one of my classmates in one of those weekends said, "Hey, I'm going for a job interview. Are you available to accompany me on this particular Saturday?" And I said, "Well, I have nothing on." Okay, so I tag along. So while waiting for his interview, he said, "Why don't you fill up the application form?" And I looked at him, I said, "Look, I don't even know what you're applying for." Okay, so I said, "It doesn't really matter, just try. I mean, what have you got to lose?" So I said, "Oh, well, really, I got nothing to lose, right?" So I filled up the application form and went for the interview. Only then did I realize that he's interviewing to be a commodity broker. And as fate would have it, I got selected and he was not. And that begins a lifelong journey for me. That's one of the reasons why I call myself the accidental trader. I didn't plan to be in this business. And because I enrolled to be a commodity broker, so the first thing I was exposed to was commodity futures. And I know absolutely nothing about commodity, not to talk about futures. What is a futures contract? So that begins a 3-month training course. And then, that's get me started. And of course, I struggled in the very beginning. My mom was my first customer. She gave me $5,000 to invest, and lo and behold, I blew it all in 1 week.
Like all beginner traders, we usually blow up our first account. But yeah. Likewise, I did the same thing. In fact, I blew up several accounts other than that. So so basically your first instrument was basically commodity futures, correct?
Yes.
Okay, good. So when you trade E-mini futures, and you also trade Forex and also CFDs and cryptocurrencies, for a beginner to learn to trade, which would you recommend is the easiest to learn first?
Well, I wouldn't categorize this as being easy or difficult based on the product that you trade. I think the approach is the key. To me, all products basically are the same. If you can reduce all prices to a price chart, I could analyze them, I could trade them in one standard manner. Okay, of course, the volatility and the personality of each individual product is very different. But that aside, I think the approach is the more important thing. Once you master how market operates and how to read and look out for patterns that appear again and again on a price chart, you can basically trade them any way you want it. And regardless of whether it is an FX product or whether it's a cryptocurrency product or whether it is a futures contracts.
Okay, so the most important thing is basically get to learn how to do technical analysis and how to read the patterns, or even some people use time-based candlesticks or some tick charts. Basically, it's getting to learn the chart patterns or price action, correct?
Yeah, because the market is fractal, meaning to say that what happens in a higher time frame, you could basically see the same pattern repeating itself at lower time frames. So these patterns are replicating all the time at different time scales. So, one of the first things I always teach is to recognize pattern. If you cannot recognize the pattern, if you can't see the pattern being formed, then you cannot reach a conclusion, because patterns do recur and it's happening again and again and again. I've seen it over the decades and that has never changed.
Right. So basically the experience you gain in terms of recognizing the patterns is basically the amount of time you spend screen time on the screen, looking at patterns. That's the only way you can get used to it, correct?
Yeah, correct. You definitely have to put in the hours to actually, like you say, spend screen time, okay? Because the longer you spend your time watching at the patterns and looking at markets and seeing how they react to either the news or whether it is to a release of a statistic, for example, you get to have a sense of where markets are going after a while.
Right. So here's here's another to say personal question. What do you think of day trading? How, as opposed to I believe your style of trading is more swing trading, correct? More long.
Yes, we all started for some reason. We all started as short-term trading, scalping essentially. Because when I was younger, that's what I do because it's more exciting, and because if I have to do base my analysis and trading results based on a daily time frame, I don't get excited because one day there's only one candle bar, right? So you probably will be gravitating towards the more happening lower time frames, and that is the death kill for most day traders, because when they started off, they gravitate towards day trading without necessarily understanding the larger picture. So as the years goes by, experiences, sometimes bad experiences taught me that from time to time you really have to monitor the higher time frame, because a higher time frame does give you that directional bias overall. And there's no point looking at the 1 minute time frame or even a tick chart and decide that the market is going to go one way or the other, because within the lower time frame, there's just too much noises, and sometimes you lose perspective. I always look at day trading in terms of scalping as like trench warfare. Okay, imagine you are in a trench and the only enemy you see is the other enemy inside the trench with you, and you do not necessarily see the entire battlefield like what a general can do see. So from time to time, you really have to refer to a higher time frame to get a sense of direction.
Very good. And I like your analogy about the trench, the war in the trenches, and that's very true, because you don't know what's going on outside that trench, or what the generals are planning. Great analogy. Great analogy. So are there any, in your experience, are there any misconceptions about the Emini futures, especially here in Southeast Asia?
Okay, I do find from my coaching experiences that the demographics for the different products are very, very different. For example, the middle age, the baby boomers, they are mostly into equities and they remains in equities trading. So you tell them about futures contract, they have this resistance to accepting a new product because they have totally no idea how it operates, and they are definitely more comfortable in that equity space. The same thing for futures traders. Over the years, those who are trading actively in futures, especially in Southeast Asia, I do not know about the Philippines, but in Singapore, Malaysia, I do find that the demographic for futures traders are English educated as well as middle age. Whereas the millennials, people like my children, I have an eldest daughter at 32 this year, and my youngest is 22 this year. And they tend to gravitate towards the newer products like cryptocurrencies and NFTs. So it is different product for different generation. So one of the misconceptions is that futures trading is a scam. It is not. No more than cryptocurrency can be a scam. It can be a scam if people really have the intention of really pulling rules over your eyes. These are just products. There was a time, I think less than 10 years ago, it is everywhere. People treat FX, they lure people to come in, promising them really unrealistic returns, and a lifestyle that they say you can actually do this for a living.
Right.
And those can be quite harmful. So it's not the whether the product is a scam or not. It is how people actually use that, to for ulterior motives.
Right. In fact, I guess what you're saying is how people market that. Because a lot of people, especially in the FX industry, start marketing, this is the mansions they bought, the cars they bought. But in reality, yeah, you can be profitable in FX, but you can't treat it as a get rich quick scheme, correct? It's basically
you definitely have to put in the hours. Definitely it is. These are instruments that if you know what you are doing and you know the risks that are attached to it and how to manage those risks, this can be life-giving activity, because regardless of whether the market is doing well or not well. Because like I always say to my student, what I do for trading as a means to make a living has got nothing to do with the real economy. Good times, bad times, we all can prosper in all kind of market conditions. So that's one thing that I always want to impress upon the younger generation. You may be having a well-paying job, you may be running a business that's doing very well right now, but the pandemic has actually caused a lot of rethinking in traditional way of making a living. And honestly, it did not quite affect me as much as my speaking engagement got curtailed. My trading activity continues to go, and it doesn't seem to affect me. And I always say that this is for a select few. For those who have the inclination and aptitude for trading, you can actually, upgrade your skill during this period of time, so that we know there's going to be great changes ahead. And we have already seen some of it, okay? And it's not all of it by any means. Definitely the ability to actually profit from market ups and downs will be able to put you in a place whereby you can definitely not be too stressed out.
Yeah.
And it can offer you a solution as far as finance is concerned.
Now, especially since you're also a mini futures trader, you can actually make more money when the market is going down rather than it's going up, correct?
Oh, yes, I love bear market. Remember, I made my first pot of gold back in 1987. Now, I joined this industry in 1985, not knowing that this is going to be a life-changing experience. So I took it as a job, okay? And perhaps, maybe my bosses saw some potential in me, and he handpicked me to help him set up an operation in Auckland, New Zealand. And the whole idea, the attraction for me was I was very young then. I was, going out to see the world. And since I'm into futures trading, New Zealand, Auckland, the futures exchange was the first exchange anywhere in the world to offer fully electronic trading. And that was new because electronic trading was pioneered by NASDAQ, and it never came into futures market. And New Zealand futures exchange was the first to experiment with totally electronic trading. I was excited, so I went. But I soon realized reality is very different. The liquidity is very, very poor because they were the first exchange to open any day, and there is simply no players. So the liquidity was so bad, I have to revert to trading the Hang Seng Index futures, which is traded out in Hong Kong. And I did not catch the entire bull market prior to that. But October 19, the market crashed, and I was holding to 2 lots of Hang Seng Index futures. And in those days, there were no mini futures, the full contract, okay?
The full contract, wow.
Full contract, 1.50 Hong Kong dollars. And I short sell two lots of that in the morning, and the market went limit down. And it stayed limit down for 5 working days because the exchange closed the exchange. So nobody can access, right? So I knew I was in a very good position. When the market reopens 7 days later, I was in heaven. So that shows me the bear market can be very, very profitable.
Right. Good. In fact, that price limit actually worked on your favor then, right?
Oh yes, it would have been a disaster if I've been holding too long position.
Yeah.
And today we would not have this conversation.
Right. Nice. You're almost like the George Soros of the Hang Seng. The Hang Seng.
Yeah, I was lucky because my skill level wasn't that great, and I only have a very simple method of tracking the market. I use perhaps you probably wouldn't have heard about this strategy or this technique called point and figure. We just plot X and 0 on a X basis, and then we just track the market. The only thing that is that we always will have a position either long or short. So long as you religiously follow every single turn, the market can twist and turn, but you follow every single one of them. During sideways market, we chop to pieces, but if the market trend in either way, we will have a position. And it so happened the market was coming down, and I was holding a short position. So that simple strategy, make my day. Those were very, very simple days.
Man, I'm very familiar with you talking about the X's and O's, right? Is that the one you're talking about? Yeah, I've seen that type of what they call another way of another system of trading, and I've seen that. So my final question before I let you go, again, thank you for your time. You had mentioned you have 2 millennial daughters, right? Are you teaching them to trade as well? And what is your advice to the millennials now? Now, since you're a trader yourself, what instrument are you teaching them to trade?
Well, I would love to pass on my skill to my 2 daughters, but apparently they have other interests. They're into life somewhere else. And then my eldest is into photography and she's doing very well. She's a professional photographer. My youngest is into arts and she's into motion graphics, graphic art. So they are both into arts. They are not into
trading.
They're not too concerned about money at this stage, I suppose. Maybe my eldest daughter, because she's a mom now, so obviously she will have to look at the household budget. My little one obviously is happy-go-lucky. Why don't you pick up this skill from Dad? He said, Dad, you make the money, I just spend them. Okay. So yes, I would love to leave something behind because I think this skill that I have somehow stumbled into and acquired over the years has been instrumental in giving me a lifestyle that I can that allows me, certain level of comfort, material comfort. And I think it's so important that millennials have another set of skill. Whether you have a very cushy, well-paying job or whether you are running a successful startup, you never know because a lot of things in life, are never certain, right? So tomorrow your company could go into a situation in which they tell you, thank you very much for your services, or your business could face certain uncertainty and doesn't allow you to operate the way you did. So again, having a skill like, trading financial markets is to me very essential. I would like to teach millennials how to do that. And I've been doing that not in a very commercial way because I am a one-man show. I am not skilled in building a funnel, getting people to come to my talks, to actually launch it commercially. So yeah, I do it on a selective basis when people ask me how to, and I say, if you keen to, I can coach you, okay? And my courses actually have no end date. I say I'm still good for another 10 years or so. So you better come on board before it becomes senile, okay?
In fact, your website again is tradersacademyinternational.com, right?
Yes.
And you again, people are watching this, my students, that's another website to look at because he does offer some classes there. There's a gold thing and take it from the guy from Danielle here, who's been trading for over 35 years in those financial markets. Great. In fact, like I said, you want to leave a legacy for the millennials. And like you said, you'd rather have control of your future than have it basically relying on somebody else, like working for somebody else, correct?
Yeah, I never have a salary for the last 30 years. I basically doing this on my own, and well, like I said, I am very happy with my lifestyle. All right.
Okay. Again, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Have a great weekend.
If I ever visit the Philippines, I will just call you up.
Yes, please do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.